Today we're going to be learning about the French Revolution. At the end of today's lesson, you should be able to explain how absolutism led to the French Revolution and to evaluate the causes and effects. First, we'll start with some background info. So Louis XIV built Versailles. If you guys remember from our absolutism lesson, Versailles was a huge, really decorative palace, and he fights 4 wars during his reign. He increases France's debt a lot because of those wars. Then Louis XV fought wars in Europe, India, North America. France ended up losing some of its colonial possessions, which is a lot of money, which increases France's national debt even more. Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette inherit the throne and want to continue the monarchy's lavish lifestyle, but they need funding. So what they do is they decide they want to consider raising taxes to fund their lifestyle. So they want to make the people that they're ruling over pay more money so that they can live fancy. So France is in debt and the people are starving after a poor harvest and a brutally cold winter, all while Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette are trying to raise taxes. So time to think. If France is in debt and people are starving, do you think it is a good idea for the monarchy to continue to raise taxes? Why or why not? You need to pause the video in order to think about this and write down your answer on your guided notes. Please do that. So let's talk about French society. French society was divided into 3 classes. The first class was called the First Estate. They were made up of the clergy, so people who were involved with the church. The second estate was nobility, so kings in the royal family. And the third estate was everybody else. So the Estates General was kind of this meeting where all 3 estates would get together, or a representative from all 3 estates would get together. And they're advisors to the king, and they kind of tell him what's going on in society, what they think should happen next, give their 2 cents on how society should run. So the third estate was responsible for paying all the taxes. So the clergy and the nobility did not pay taxes, but everyone else did. So do you think it is fair for only one of the estates to pay taxes? Why do you think that, or why do you not think that? This is a good time to pause the video again, think, and write your answer on your guided notes. All right, so we're going to go through some of the things that happened during the French Revolution. First is a financial crisis. The cause for that is that Louis XVI has to maintain his lavish lifestyle, so he wants to raise taxes, but France is already in debt. Jacques Necker proposes taxing the other 2 estates. So his idea, in order to keep Louis XVI living his fancy life, is to widen the people who are paying taxes. So the other 2 estates who've never paid taxes before are like, yeah, we're not down with that. They don't want to pay them. So the effect ends up being a calling of the Estates General. So the representatives for each of the estates go to a meeting to decide if they're going to raise taxes. By the way, each estate gets 1 vote, even though the third estate is the largest because it's everyone who's not in the clergy or nobility. They only get 1 vote. And same for the clergy gets 1 vote, nobility gets 1 vote. So the clergy and nobility join together and outvote the third estate. And the third estate refuses to leave after an unfair voting. So do you think it was right for the third estate to refuse to leave after the unfair voting? The second cause is the National Assembly. So the third estate is angry about the unfair voting. They refuse to leave. The king orders them to be locked out. The effect of this is what we call the tennis court oath. The third estate moves next door to a tennis court and they swear an oath that they will not leave until they have a new government. And the people of France support them with this. The king then sends troops to arrest them. And the people of Paris riot. So this leads to the storming of the Bastille. So the cause here is that the people of Paris are angry over the king sending troops to arrest the members of the Nationals. The effect is that riots break out. People need weapons to fight the king's troops, and they believe that they're in the Bastille. The Bastille is like a prison. So they storm the Bastille to find weapons. Mobs attack a massive prison, which has a lot of weapons and gunpowder. And the mob overpowers the guards and kills them. The mob takes the weapons and they also destroy the. So this is what most historians say is the beginning of the French Revolution. It's debatable. There are different parts that people say are the beginning, but this one is the most common. So the fourth thing that happens in the revolution is the monarchy loses its power. So the cause of this is that the National Assembly creates a document that is called the Declaration of the Rights of Man. So the Declaration of the Rights of Man takes all the power away from the king and gives it to the people. I don't read French. I don't speak French, so I don't know how to pronounce these words in French. But their cry is that for liberty, equality, and brotherhood. France abolished slavery in Haiti, which we'll get to that in our next lesson. That was part of the Declaration of the Rights of Man, and the king refuses to sign it. So the effect of this is that thousands of starving women and peasants march on Versailles, which is where the king lives in his fancy palace, and Louis is captured and forced to return to Paris. So Louis XVI and his family attempt to flee France and go to Austria, where Marie Antoinette is from, to get an army to put down the revolution. But he's captured at the Austrian border, so he does not make it. Him and his family are captured. So do you think it was a good idea for Louis XVI to try to leave France? And how do you think this made the people of France feel? So the next thing that happens in the revolution is the execution of the king and the reign of terror. So the cause of this is King Louis and his family are arrested. The monarchy is abolished, meaning the monarchy is overthrown, it's ended, and France officially becomes a... So the king and the queen are executed by guillotine, which is a new method of execution where there's a really sharp blade and it's held up by a rope. You drop the rope and the blade falls down and beheads people. Great Britain, Austria, and Prussia declare war on France, and France suffers many. So radical Jacobins, which is a political party led by a man named Robespierre, gain power in France. And Robespierre creates the Committee of Public Safety to make sure people are loyal to the revolution. So the Committee of Public Safety began executing anyone they think isn't loyal to the revolution, and you guessed it, they do this very commonly by guillotine. Thousands are executed, and we call this the Reign of Terror. They even set up like multiple guillotines in like town squares and did mass executions. People begin to fear for their lives and question if Robespierre should be in charge at this point. Robespierre ends up becoming arrested, and he is executed in a public square, sorry guys, by guillotine. Do you think it was a good idea to execute the king? Why or why not? All right, so the Directory and the rise of Napoleon. This revolution still is not over. A lot of things happen. So the Committee of Public Safety is dismantled, which again is the committee that was created under Robespierre. So they get rid of that and they form a new government in August 1795 known as the Directory. France is losing the war at this point, and the effect of the Directory and the rise of Napoleon is there are food shortages and more taxes anger the people of France. Many people hate the new government, which is the Directory, and Napoleon Bonaparte, who is a young officer in the French army, begins to win battles. And because France has been losing for so long, they like the idea that Napoleon is winning and representing France in a positive light. So he gains popularity with the people of France. In 1799, a coup d'etat takes place and Napoleon overthrows the Directory. If you don't know what a coup d'etat is, it's French for like overthrowing who's in charge. Napoleon crowns himself Emperor of France in 1804, and he gives himself absolute power over France.